All right, welcome everyone to the Food Bank Tableau user group. This is our last meeting for the year, so looking forward to more in the new year. Stay tuned for that. We have a few things lined up for you, so we'll go ahead and get started here. If you're new to our group, this is of course the Food Bank Tug. Go ahead and scan that QR code. That'll get you into our Slack channel, which we use to communicate, share ideas, resources, troubleshoot, all of that stuff. So the Food Bank Tug, of course, is dedicated to anyone working in the food bank and hunger relief industry who use Tableau, work with data to enhance their work. And today's presentation is right in line with that. So I want to give a quick shout out to our co-host, Tableau user group, which is the Data plus Maps group. Another great Tableau user group you can join. They meet virtually. Dennis, our speaker today, is a leader of that group. So you can scan that QR code and that'll take you to their page where you can see their events and register for their upcoming events. So thank you again. If you're joining us from the Data plus Maps Tableau user group, we are very happy to have you. The agenda for today, pretty simple. We've done a couple of these things already, but we'll do a couple of quick intros and then I'm going to just hand it over to Dennis to do his thing. So, and then stick around at the end, we'll do a Tableau swag giveaway. If you don't know me, I'm Caleb Gibbons. I'm a business intelligence analyst here at a local company. Some of you know I actually recently took this role. I actually haven't even started my new position yet. It starts next week. But previously I had 6 years with Feeding the Gulf Coast, which of course is Feeding America Food Bank that covers the Gulf Coast region. So I'm well-versed in that field and definitely passionate about it and love seeing what we can do with data to serve our neighbors. My co-host is Tammy Jackson, excuse me, data analyst at Golden Harvest in Georgia. And then of course, our guest speaker today, Dennis Cow, social work educator and researcher, Tableau visionary, public ambassador. Please check out his Tableau public profile. I'll send the link in the chat in a few minutes just to see his amazing work and his map design. So last time he walked us through how to use a GIS tool to bring shape files into Tableau. So today we're going to learn more about what is possible with that. So with that, I will stop presenting and hand it over to Dennis. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. It's good seeing everybody again. Thank you so much, Food Bank Tug, for just another opportunity. It's kind of rare to get a chance to really dig deeper into this stuff. And so a second time around, I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. So hopefully you enjoy it. So just really quick, I'm going to review a few things from last meeting. Just to kind of walk us through the process. I'm hoping to kind of dig a little bit more deeply into some of the steps so that people get a sense of how to do it. Because last week I kind of ran through a few things really quickly. And so this week I want to spend a little bit more time on that. But let me just kind of quickly go through. For those who don't know me, so my name is Dennis again. I've been using Tableau for almost exactly just a little over 5 years. So November 30th was my Tableau anniversary. And so I've been using Tableau for about 5 years. I've been doing GIS for about 15 plus years now. So, and I talked about this last week, but I actually really enjoy visualizing maps in Tableau. I still use QGIS quite a bit in my day-to-day work and my visualizations because it's easier to work with spatial files. But then when it comes to the final visualization, I just love using doing that in Tableau because you can add other charts. The design kind of functionality in Tableau is, although it's a little clunky compared to maybe Canva or Figma, it's less clunky than it is in QGIS. And so I really enjoy kind of the mix of everything, kind of the all-around kind of tool that Tableau is. And so I end up doing a lot of my final visualizations and map designs in Tableau. So the agenda is really quite simple. I'm just going to walk through several examples of my workflow. And my workflow is usually, if I'm dealing with spatial files, I like to do that in a GIS tool, and largely QGIS, which is the free tool that I use. But I sometimes use ArcGIS Pro because there's a few things that I like to do there. But generally, I use a GIS tool whenever I'm using spatial data, when I even just want to look at it quickly. Prepping, I'll talk a little example, give you a few examples of how I prep the data. And then probably, and this is kind of where the fun, comes in really. I think you can create you can actually create data in a QGIS tool that then you can use in Tableau for the analysis or visualization. And so I'll show you a few examples of that as well. And feel free, we can keep this informal. If you have a question or something like that, or if I'm going over things too quickly, I'm happy to go through it again. I think we have plenty of time to go through the stuff that I have prepared. And so feel free to let me know if I need to slow down or anything like that. Okay. Great. All right, so data prep. And so the idea with data prep is with spatial files, because the unique nature of spatial files, I have found it, at least in my experience, it's much easier to prep the data, work with the data in a GIS tool, because GIS software are specially made to deal with spatial data. It's just easier to visualize, easier to manipulate, easier to prep. And then once you prep the files, then you can just bring those files into Tableau to visualize. Tableau prep. I haven't really, worked with Tableau prep a whole lot, but my understanding that it's not easy to work with spatial files in Tableau prep, because I think partly because you can't visualize kind of the spatial files geographically or spatially. There's other tools that obviously you can use other than GIS, Python, R, and things like that. But I like actually seeing everything. And QGIS kind of mirrors the drag and drop kind of functionality of Tableau. And so I think it's an easier transition for those who are experienced in Tableau to move over to QGIS, because it's similar in terms of the interface and things like that. So I want to kind of give an example of kind of how I might do things in Tableau only, and then as kind of in comparison, let's do the same thing in QGIS to prep the files and then bring it into Tableau. And I think it's just a good example of kind of maybe some things are easier if you just do it in Tableau. And then some things are, I think, easier because we're dealing with spatial files, easier to do in QGIS. And so for example, if I wanted to build, and this is using the same data from last time, and I can share the data as well. And I'm going to share this workbook with Caleb and Tammy. And so you're welcome to open it. I'll share the link and everything. So you're welcome to kind of work with the data, and kind of play with it as well once we're done. So let's just assume that I wanted to build a map of Long Beach, the city of Long Beach in California, and visualize the pantries in Long Beach, the food pantries in Long Beach. And so I have some data. So I have data. So I have a shapefile of the cities and communities in LA, in the LA area. So I'm just going to bring that in, just so we have it. And then I have a file with, and I'll open it really quickly, a file of food pantries, and it's just the address, city, it's just the address. And then I also got the latitude and longitude, or the X and Y coordinates for that. All right. So what I can do is, in Tableau, of course, we can do a spatial join so that we can join and create a single data set with the city and communities shapefile and this file. And so I'll quickly do that. I'm going to add it as a text file. And this is probably mirrors kind of what you are probably used to doing when you're dealing with some of this stuff. And so I'm going to create a join. And what I can do is create a spatial join here. Let's see. With the geometry here, and then I have to make a use a make point function to map the locations based on the X and Y coordinates. And I'm going to do an intersect here in all, full outer. And then once I set that up, it's going to create this data set. You can see it here. And then when I go back to the worksheet, of course, we can start mapping this out. So for example, if I bring in the cities and communities and I just want to filter out Long Beach, like so. And then I can also bring in the food banks, food pantries. But again, I have to do the make point again. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going through this fast because I imagine all of you are probably more, competent and proficient at doing this than I am in Tableau. Okay. And so so we have a quick map of all the food pantries in the Long Beach area, like so. And so we use a spatial join to join those data together. And that way we can just map out the food pantries that are just in and filter out all the food pantries that are outside of Long Beach and just include those that are inside Long Beach. And so that's, so I don't think that was too difficult to do. I don't think, but let's do it in QGIS and kind of go through a process of what, and, I think the advantages of maybe doing in QGIS is, we're working with really small data here, but once we start to work with more data and more geometries and things like that, I think the data set will blow up even bigger. And so I think the advantage of you doing in QGIS is, I think it's a little faster. You're bringing in less data into QGIS and things like that. So it might help the dashboards run faster as well. So let's go to QGIS now. And for those who aren't familiar with QGIS, this is the interface. When you add layers, the layers will show up here. Let me turn on my cursor a little bit so you can see it. The layers will show up here and the map will show up here, okay? All right, so let's start moving some things in. So, for example, if I want to do the same thing, I'm going to bring in the city and communities of the Los Angeles area in, and then it's going to ask me kind of like in terms of projection, do I want to transform what projection I want to transform it into? I'm just going to push OK, and you'll notice as soon as I bring it in, it quickly maps it out here. And so I'm going to just zoom into the kind of the main part of the LA County. And if I wanted to select Long Beach, for example, there's a couple ways I can do that, and I can create a separate layer. And so one option is if I just select the point tool here, I can actually select Long Beach, and you'll notice when I click on it, it turns yellow, right? And then I can copy and paste that feature as a temporary layer and call this Long Beach. And then automatically I get a layer that's just Long Beach, like so, okay? Now I can also, like if I don't know where Long Beach is, for example, I can also, I've selected the city and communities layer. I can also go to this function here, which is select features by value. And there's other options here, but I'm just going to select this one, select features by value. And this window shows up, and these are all the fields that are in the database. And all I need to do is type in Long Beach. And then I can select it. And let me turn off the one that I just created. And you'll notice that it's selected Long Beach again. And what's happening here? So if I go to the attribute table, this is the attribute table that's connected to the data set. It comes with the data set. And you'll notice you can actually select from here. right? So if I wanted to select from the attribute table, you'll notice that as I'm selecting, different things are being selected, right? I can only, and then once I select them all, I can show only the selected features. I can even like these are let's say these are the ones I want to take out. Then I can toggle it. So so I can invert the selection. So the ones that are selected will be unselected. The ones that aren't selected at this point will be selected. So if I toggle it, then now I can create a map layer just using these selected features, right? So I think there's a lot of advantages to using QGIS just for these reasons, that it's really easy. You'll notice like in just a matter of seconds, I'm kind of manipulating the data. I'm selecting them. I filtered out Long Beach. I can save this as a shape file and things like that. So, so one advantage of this is also I can save this layer. I think I hear something in the background. Is that me? No, that's not me. I don't think.
I think it is. I checked. No, we're good. I'll make someone.
Is it just in my head, or do people hear that
Well,
background noise too? So one advantage here is over Tableau is where you can't save necessarily these shape files, like once you filter them and things like that. I can do that in QGIS. So this is a map layer of just Long Beach. And if I needed this in the future, right, I can save this as a spatial file. And so I can do just that. So I'm going to do that now because I'm going to use it later on. So let me just save this as this is Long Beach, and I'm going to save it as just a shape file just because I'm more familiar with the shape files. It's going to add it here as well, but you don't necessarily need that. But so let me remove that. But now it's saved, and I can go back to Tableau and then plop the Long Beach one in as well. And now we have a shapefile that's just Long Beach. Okay, so this is one way that I'm kind of filtering the data, right? Like I don't need everything. I don't need all the city and communities in Los Angeles County. All I need is the city of Long Beach, the outline, for example. And so now I have a shapefile that's just that, and I'm just bringing that into my workbook. Okay. All right. So let's keep on going with this. And so I can also add, and I'm going to show you another way to add things. I can also add, layers in different formats and things like that. I'm going to add a layer based on the CSV file of food pantries. So it's a delimited text layer. This window pops up. Then I'm going to go to the file. And then it's going to automatically recognize that the X and Y are the X field and the Y field. If you have lat and longitude coordinates, you just have to reverse it. So the X field would be longitude, the Y field would be latitude. Okay. And I'm going to quickly add all the points here. And so, I don't need all these points. I only need the ones in Long Beach, right? And so there's a couple ways we can go about doing this. Okay. So for points, we can actually manually click on them, okay? And if I hold the shift key, I can do that like so. Okay, I can go to the values field and type in Long Beach in the city, and then hopefully it will select all of them. Now there might be your geography might be Long Beach and other cities, and so you could do that kind of manually in that way as well. You'll notice when I go to the value field, you can select the features, but you can also add to the current selection, right? So let's say I want the let's see what's right above Long Beach. Let's go Carson. right? I can also add the features that are all the food pantries that are in Carson. I can add it to the ones I've already selected for Long Beach. So I'm going to click on this option here, and you'll notice that these here are yellow now because the city of Carson is like right about here. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. But I'm going to show you another way. So I'm going to clear the selection because once, it's easy here because we can actually see all the points all at once. But what if we have this, massive geography? We can't see everything all at once and things like that. I can actually select by location. So if I go down to the vector menu, research tools, there's an option called select by location. Okay. And what this is, this window will show up. What it'll do is it'll say select features from what layer. And so in this case, food pantries. And then you can select kind of a what are these called? Like like I want to say adjective, but no, like how the features kind of intersect or overlap with whatever other feature that you're thinking, right? So in this case, I want all the features from the food pantry layer that intersect with the Long Beach layer. Okay. And so we don't have to see everything, right? We don't have to kind of select manually. We don't have to make sure that we have a city field there that says Long Beach. If we had two layers, and because they overlap geographically, we can actually use them. We can actually select it spatially, right, by location. And so if I do this and if all goes well and I run it, right, you'll notice that all the dots in the Long Beach area are now selected. And once they're selected, I can actually copy the features and then paste the features into a new map layer here called Food Pantry Long Beach. And you'll notice that these are all the points. And then I can save this as again, as a shapefile. I apologize if I'm going too fast. I'm hoping that people are getting the gist of it. And once I have that, I can go to my file, which is right here, right? Add that shapefile in and just plop it in as another map layer, like so. Okay. So we can kind of recreate the map from earlier. Okay. And so I did some selecting, some various options with copying and pasting. The other thing that I showed last week was if I wanted to add some roads to the mix, because I just want to kind of build this up. If I wanted some roads, we can select by location, but if we do so, some of the road segments, the lines might kind of extend beyond the Long Beach boundary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip. And I think I showed this last week. So clipping is basically, it'll clip one layer based on the boundaries set by the second layer. So in this case, I want to clip the roads based on the Long Beach polygon. And once I run that, you'll notice that the roads get clipped exactly along the boundary of Long Beach. And then again, we can save this as a file. And this would be Long Beach roads. And then of course we can add this as a file as well. As another layer. Okay. Now you notice that in case of the roads, right? That's actually a big, huge file because there's lots of roads in Southern California, right? So in this case, I think it was kind of to our advantage to do something like that um, in order to clip the roads, because we didn't need all that data in our workbook. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So that's our map of Long Beach with the food pantries. I added the roads because I like some kind of reference point. So some people who know Long Beach geography might be able to recognize some of the main streets and things like that. Of course, we can disable the selection so it won't, when you hover, it won't do anything. And so that's that. So I think there's some advantage going from here, Tableau only, to here, right? I think the advantage is you actually, maybe save a shapefile of just the things that you need. And so eventually, if you need it for another project, you have those shapefiles in place that you can do. I think adding kind of other features along this way, like clipping roads, I might add some building footprints, things like that, to kind of complete the map. Gives some good sense of reference and things like that. Here we can actually, we can go to our map box and add the kind of background layers just to give some context. Let's turn this into, so we will turn that off. And so of course we can do something like this. And for most purposes, this might be exactly what you need, something like this. I just don't like Mapbox a whole lot because it kind of, there's things that you can't, are kind of outside of your control, right? Like let's say I want streets, right? But I don't want the street names. I don't want these freeway things. I want it darker maybe, or I want it, to be a little bit more prominent. If I wanted the major freeways to really be prominent, things like that. You can't manipulate because Mapbox is essentially a background image in the back, right? Here you can do a little more things here if if ultimately that's kind of the things that you need to do. All right. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the basic gist of where I use QGIS to basically filter the data. And there's kind of different things that we did. We did clipping, we did selecting, various ways to select, where we filtered the data to just the data that I needed for this project, for this workbook, okay, for this map. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of go switch gears a little bit and go into the data creation piece. And I think this is kind of where mapping comes pretty, I think it's just, this is just the fun part, because this is kind of creativity. These are things that now you can add some elements that really kind of add either to the aesthetic of the map, which I think in most cases, that's probably what I'm most concerned about, from kind of because that's just the work that I do. But there's things that we can do to also kind of add kind of usability, friendliness, readability, and things like that. I'm going to show you a few things that you can do in QGIS, and hopefully it will kind of trigger some creativity on your part as well. Okay. So the first thing that I want to show you is creating an inset map, which is basically, let's say we have a map of Long Beach like so, and we want to include a map of California with a little square that shows where Long Beach is. So, because maybe not everybody who's going to read this map knows where Long Beach is. And so an inset map is basically a map at a larger scale that gives the reader a sense of where the smaller scale, or the more detailed map is located based on a larger geography, right? And so if you can imagine, a map of Long Beach would be the main map. And then on the very corner or something like, there might be a map of California with a little square that shows where the larger detail map is showing, right? So let's do that in QGIS right now. Okay, so we already have the map of Long Beach. And so what I can do right now is I can actually create a new temporary scratch layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a rectangle for a square. Okay. You can also do a circle. You can do a heart. You can do a hexagon. You can do a number of different shapes. But for this purposes, I'm going to do just a simple square. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a new temporary scratch layer. And then I'm going to call this rectangle. And then it's going to be a polygon. Okay. Now you can add fields and things like that. So if you were doing kind of multiple squares, multiple features, you can add like, you know, an ID, a name, or things like that. But I'm only creating a single polygon or single rectangle. So I don't really need that for this purpose. And so you'll notice that the new layer here shows up. You'll notice that this little pencil, I don't know if you can see that, but there's this little icon with a pencil that shows that it currently is being edited, okay? Because there's nothing in here. Like if I open the attribute table, I haven't created anything, so there's nothing in this data right now. But what I'll do is I'll use the, so you'll notice like this is the editing toolbar, I believe. Let's see. Digitizing toolbar. You'll notice that pencil's turned on. So once I'm done, I can toggle this editing off and save the layer as is, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit it. I'm going to turn on, this one is add a polygon feature, this icon right here. And you'll notice once I click that on, this toolbar becomes available, which is the what is it called? The shape digitizing. Shape digitizing toolbar. Okay, so we can create different shapes here. And so right now I have a rectangle selected here. Of course, we can do another kind of we can create any kind of polygon. We can follow the boundaries of Long Beach or anything like that as well. But I'm just going to do, and here's a circle. I'm just going to do a rectangle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this rectangle like so, just approximate. Okay. And so what it does now, there's a rectangle. Okay. You're like thinking, wow, that's cool. But this rectangle is actually geographically referenced to this geographic point. Okay. So if you imagine the corners are points. So there's a latitude and longitude to these points. And then the line is drawn across and then the lines are drawn to connect the points, and then it's created into a polygon once you complete the loop, right? So we can save this rectangle as a feature, as a shapefile. Okay, so this is a Long Beach rectangle. Okay, and so it's going to save it here. And what I can do in Tableau now is, let's see if I have everything I need here. So I need the states in here. Oh, I already have those. Okay. So I already have the state file in here. So I'm just going to kind of bring that in. And then I'm just going to select California here, like so. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in the rectangle that I just created. Now this is a shapefile. It's a rectangle that we created. It doesn't exist in the world whatsoever, but we created it in QGIS. And once I bring that rectangle in, you'll notice that, okay, so you won't see it, but there's a little rectangle right here. So let's key in on Southern California, like so. You'll notice that there's a little rectangle, a square right there, and I can make that kind of red so you can see it, right? And so you can imagine that this rectangle now, like if we had a map of Long Beach and then this little map on the side, it shows the reader exactly where the larger map of Long Beach is. We can also add it to our previous map here. Like so. Let's bring it down to the bottom. And I'm going to just turn it off. Yeah, let's turn it off. And then if we go to a dashboard, that was this one, right? We can actually zoom in. We can use this rectangle as a reference now, right? So we can actually zoom in exactly to where this square is, like so. We can change the kind of our container to kind of match up with the square, and then we can go back and we can turn off everything here as well. Okay, like so. So it could be used also as a reference to kind of draw how bit where the exact map of Long Beach should how it should be positioned, and that will match up with this little square that's right here. Okay, there are probably other use cases for like a square on a map, but this is the one that I can think of right now off the top. Okay, all right. Of course, it doesn't have to be a square, right? So we can alter this. So let's say we can also, draw a circle, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a rectangle. It could be a circle. There's other shapes here as well. If we wanted to, let's turn this off here. If we wanted to, for example, let's pretend that we wanted to, I don't know, why is this not showing? I don't want that anymore. What's going on? We can actually create a shape. Let's say we wanted just this area right here, but we wanted to kind of outline, let's say this block right here, for example, this block, right? Oops. Okay. So it's a kind of it's not a rectangle, it's not a circle, it's not a regular shape, but what we can do is we can use, I think this one. We can actually draw, and of course I didn't practice this one before, so of course I don't know how to do it right now. Let's see. Oh yeah, what's segment here? Let's do that here. So you all see that sort of? And this curvy part, like we can kind of, what I'm doing is I'm just clicking on it. Let's say we want to go up a little bit here. I'm just clicking every point, every part where I want the line to kind of meet up. And so something like this might be really good for like service area kind of mapping or things like that. So, I imagine there is no, there's no shapefile that exists out there that automatically has your service area, right? So if you wanted to draw your service area in different kind of regions and things like that, and these are things that you kind of created based on streets and things like that, you can actually physically draw those and create a shapefile that you can use over and over and over again. Okay. So let me quickly just do that again. So for example, this little triangle here, I had another window open at the time. That's why I couldn't trigger anything. So hopefully, so you can do this like, oh, so let's say this street was the boundary. And all I'm doing is just clicking and curving along this street. And then there. And then it wanted to be, because I'm creating multiple shapes in this, it wanted me to fill in a kind of an ID code. And so there's that. So if, of course, it's not going to show up because I have this huge rectangle here. But hopefully you get the idea. Like you can draw irregular shapes too, that then you can kind of combine into a shapefile and that you can use for your mapping as well. Okay. And this is really good for things that aren't like regularly, the US Census is not going to provide these shapefiles. You're not going by zip codes. It's your service area, which might be just bounded by streets. And so you can actually map that out using QGIS and create that shapefile for your purposes. All right, enough of that. Okay, I didn't practice that earlier. It just kind of came to me, and so it didn't pan out as well. But hopefully, you kind of get the idea. Okay. Let's see. So I covered grids a little bit, but I just want to kind of show you a couple of things that you can do with grids that might be interesting or helpful for you. So let me just quickly, I'm going to turn off a few things just so it's easier to see. All right, so let's say we have this map of Long Beach with the food pantries. And, you know, so grid is kind of cool, this cool little option where a grid could be useful in various cases, okay? So one example is if you wanted to draw a hexagon grid and, wait, hold on, give me a second here. Food pantries, create a grid. And then let's say maybe 0.5 degrees, maybe. Let's see how big that is. So let me create that grid. Oh, it's too big. Okay, let's see. It must be a point. Oh, because, okay, 0.01. Right, so you can create a really quick grid like this. If that's too big or too small, I have the window still open, so I can change the parameters. So let's make this a little smaller. 0.5 maybe. Okay, so I like those, right? And then we can actually map it out, but we can select all the cells that kind of intersect with the Long Beach as well. So we can do the same kind of principle, select by location from the grid to Long Beach. So parts of the grid that intersect with Long Beach, and then we can copy and paste like so. Okay, this is hexagon grid, Long Beach. Okay, let me turn that off, and then let me symbolize this so that you can see the outline of Long Beach on the bottom. Okay, and then what we can do with this, and this is, you know, what I used to do is then I can map out, I can join the features from the food pantry point data. So you'll notice that this cell has 2 food pantries. I don't know if you can see that clearly, this area. So this cell has 2, this cell has 1, this cell has 3, it looks like, things like that. So I can actually join these 2 files so that I can create a hexagon file that's based on the count of how many food pantries there are. And then I can use this hexagon map as a way to kind of show, oh, food access or access to food pantries across Long Beach, right? And create like a hexagon map like that. You can do that with hex bins in Tableau already, but I think the value of this is you can add this as another layer to your already existing map that you're creating, okay? Which I don't think you can do that with hex bins. You can't add that as a layer by itself, okay? And so, but now there's, I used to do that kind of in multiple steps. Now there's this kind of cool little feature, this plugin called density analysis. So I have a little toolbar here. You can actually do that really quickly. Hexagon. We can do this really quickly and create that hexagon map like really quickly. And you'll notice that. And then you can save this as a shapefile, right? So you don't have to do that kind of, you know, create the hexagon grid and things like that. You can actually use the density analysis plugin. And that's the great thing about QGIS. It's open source. It's free, open source. And so because it's open source, these developers are creating all these plugins all the time to do different things. And so if you need a certain analysis, there's likely that there is a plugin for that. So now I can save this as another shapefile. So this is Long Beach. Let's just call it hexagons. And then I can save that, and I could then open it up to Tableau, open up in Tableau. And then just bring it in like so. Okay, let me add Tableau, the streets. And hopefully you get the idea. Okay, I won't belabor this, but, and then we can, of course, we can color that based on the number of points like that. Okay. So really quickly, like you notice that I did this in a matter of minutes, right? So, hopefully you're getting the idea that QGIS is kind of this cool little tool. It's great to have it in your tool belt, things like that. Okay. All right. How are we doing with time? Okay. Really quickly, buffers. Tableau can already do buffers, and I'll just talk through this really quick. Tableau can do buffers. It can do buffers with lines and points. So using the buffer function, right? The buffer calculation function. What it can't do is buffers around polygons. And it also can't do internal buffers. And I think I can't really think of any good examples of internal buffers, except for if you wanted to create water lines. And some of you may have seen some of the work I've done around water lines. So let me just show you that really quickly. So I have a shapefile of, I thought I did, of the Great Lakes. Here we go. Did it come up? Oh, here. Oh, no. Oh, here it is. Okay. And I'm going to just zoom there really quick. Okay. So you'll notice I'm working with all this, and I'm just kind of plopping things in. And so now, obviously, the Great Lakes are kind of far from Long Beach, but I can zoom in and kind of really quickly work with this. And so I'm just going to quickly show you an example where I actually created internal buffers. So under geoprocessing tools, there's the buffer tool here. I'm creating a buffer using the Great Lakes, and I want let's say 2 kilometers here, like so. So I created that, and you'll notice that the buffer shows up there. So that's the outside buffer, right? You'll notice that. But what I want, and you'll notice I kept the window open. I can change the parameters and just keep on going. I want it to be negative, -2. Okay, and I'm going to create a few. -4. And then -6. Okay. And what it should have done, hopefully, once I bring this down, you'll notice that I really quickly created buffers, internal buffers, right? So the pink is the actual Great Lakes here, right? And then now there's 1, 2, 3 buffers that I created that are about 2 kilometers apart from each other. Okay. Now internal buffers are kind of cool. I'll plop this shapefile into Tableau, the workbook as well. But I think what's more important probably, and might be more useful in your cases, is if you want to do polygons around buffers around polygons, right? So not everything is a point or line, right? And things that come up for me are, especially when you drill down locally, are things like parks, schools, maybe buildings or building complexes in some way. Those are all polygons when we map them out visually. And so, you can actually, you can create a centroid and map a buffer around that point. But what's really valuable is a buffer around the entire polygon, right? So how far is 50 meters away from a particular school or a particular park, right? And so I think those are kind of more helpful, I think, maybe more helpful use cases when it comes to buffers. And right now, Tableau can't do a buffer around a polygon. Okay. All right. Now to kind of wrap up, I want to kind of do, I was going to do projections, like go through the steps really quickly, but I'll do that, but in the process of this kind of exercise here, this example here. And so I call this defying the laws of geography. And so what I'm actually going to do is manipulate the data, so for my purposes. And so this is an example. And for this example, I'm just going to use the United States. And so whenever we bring in a shapefile or look at the United States, because it's the Mercator, using the Mercator projectant, it ends up looking like this, right? So if we wanted to map the entire United States, it would look like this. We can actually create separate maps of the continental part of the United States, Hawaii, and Alaska, and create different containers to kind of, so we can show all of them all in a kind of a dashboard or something like that. So it doesn't look as awkward as this. Alaska looks huge because Mercator projection, things that are on the northern and southern poles will look bigger than they actually are, right? And so what if we were able to manipulate this so that all of this was in one shapefile that we can actually plot, and some of you may have seen it where Alaska is actually down here and Hawaii is actually over here, right? And so when we look at the map, it actually shows all 50 states kind of in one little visual here, like that's right here, right? So let's do that, and we can do that in QGIS. And I wanted to just show this as an example of how we can manipulate things and scale things in a way for our purposes. And once we create that, we have this shapefile that we can use for other things. Okay, so I'll quickly go here. Let me clean this up a little bit. So let me just clear this and start with a blank slate. Okay, so I have a shapefile of the United States here. Okay, and it looks like that. Okay, let me drill down here. And, I can save it using Sarah Battersby's kind of article. I can follow those. This is the Mercator projection that looks like this. But you can follow her article, and I have it in the workbook again, where you can save and kind of hack it so that Tableau will visualize this in other projections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to project this using the Lambert conformal full conic. So this we can actually, this one, because I think the United States looks a little better like this. So it's a little curvy. Alaska looks like that. But still, we have that problem where Alaska's way up here and Hawaii is way up here. And so we would still need to do different containers. But what if we can physically move Hawaii over here? Alaska, we can physically move here and make it smaller. You can do that in QGIS. So for example, so I'm going to edit. So I have this selected. You'll notice that pencil shows up here, the pencil icon here. So I'm going to edit this file. Now it's not going to edit the original file. So what I'll do is I'll save this as another file later on. Okay. So what I can do is I can actually use this is the advanced digitizing toolbar. I can use these different things to kind of manipulate the way these polygons look like. So if we move away from this is actually a map of the United States to this is just a picture of different polygons, we can start manipulating and changing them, right? So for example, so if I wanted to change Hawaii, you'll notice I clicked on it and wherever I'm going, Hawaii kind of follows me. So I'm going to move it over here. Okay. Then I'm going to move Alaska. So, but what I want to do, I'm going to move Alaska, but I want to scale it first. So we can rotate it, but this option is scaling it. So I'm going to make it a little smaller first. So it actually fits in that little corner. So I'm going to click on it. You'll notice on the right right corner of the window, there's a scaling little number, 1.00. So right now it's the exact size that should be. Let's make that 0.5. Okay. And then now I'm just going to move this over down here. And then once we have that, and then I don't know how, like if you usually map Puerto Rico, but let's move that Puerto Rico right around here. Is that awkward right there? Okay, anyways. So what we can do now, and then we can save this. We can save this as, let's just say US hack file. Okay. And if all goes well, and I practice this, so hopefully it does. Once we did that, we have it here. Okay, so you'll notice that it shows up here. So let's turn off this one. Well, not this one, this one. And now we have the United States here. Now I didn't hack the projection, so it's still Mercator. But now, and let me turn off, in this case, because we are manipulating the laws of geography here. Now we have a map of the United States with Alaska, Hawaii here. And you'll notice if we put in the name, all of them is exactly what it should be. And you can join data to this and things like that based on state and stuff. Okay. And then I think that's it. I know I ran through this really quickly. I hopefully gave you an idea of some of the things you can do in QGIS that helps us visualize things a little bit better, I think, in Tableau, aesthetically, as well as maybe in this case, for example, United States, it could be useful. Like you can fit all of this into a single dashboard now, like in a corner of a dashboard, instead of trying to figure out how to position Alaska and Hawaii and things like that. But I think that's it. We're bumping against 1 o'clock, so.
No, this was great. I just put in the chat. That's a really, I didn't know you could do that in QGIS. I'm working on a personal project and needed to do exactly this, have, the lower 48 and then some other countries. And I was trying to do it with multiple sheets in Tableau, which I guess you could do it that way, but this is like so much easier and cleaner. Have one sheet. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Dennis. This was awesome.
Again, I'm happy to entertain questions if there are any questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry I went over. I went all the way to 1 o'clock, but I'm happy to entertain any questions if people want to stay on, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm happy to as well. I'm good. So, and then Annette, I know you asked a question. Yes, I will share the Slack channel info right now. And that's where all the recordings I post there. There's about 3 different ways to find those. So, but I'll post them there as well, just to have everybody have it all in one place. Any questions for Dennis? I have a question. Can we get elevation shape files?
Yes. I would probably go. Are we talking about the United States, or are we talking more generally?
United States.
Yeah. So if you go to the U.S. Geological Society, they will have shape files. They will also have raster files. So rasters are another type of file that are basically like pixels with different values assigned to each cell. So you can access, so they have digital elevation model files and things like that. It's probably more detailed in that case. But you can also get kind of elevation shape files that you can kind of plop into QGIS, manipulate. You can map those in Tableau and things like that. Yeah. but I've gotten stuff from the U.S. Geological Society. Is it geological? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. The USGS.
Yeah, very cool. I've only just started to scratch the surface of like what is out there as far as free files.
Yeah,
There's
I think there's just there's a ton of data out there that like very rarely do I think there might be certain use cases where you have to create your own kind of data, and I think service areas sometimes is something because it's normally it's based on street boundaries as opposed to like you're not conforming to like census tracts or zip codes, maybe zip codes or things like that that already have shape files. So, but I think creating certain things like the square, maybe mapping out a shape of your service area, manipulating the data a little bit so that you can actually fit it on the dashboard, things like that. I think that those are kind of useful. I think those are maybe more relevant use cases in much of your work.
Yeah, I think even like the food bank I was a part of, our service area is by county, but it's across 3 states. So
Yeah.
Whenever I did this manually, I'm just constantly like looking up the FIPS codes and county codes and all these codes to filter on just to get the service area. So it would have been much easier in QGIS just to pull in all those, manually select, filter out the rest, and save as a shapefile.
Yeah, and I think it will save time. Like if you were able to just save that as a shapefile,
Yep.
right? You just whenever you need it, you just bring it in,
Bring it
right?
in.
Like instead of having to recreate it in Tableau or creating the filters or kind of creating the data extract or whatever you need to do to kind of create whatever data shape like spatial data that you need, you can actually do that and save those as shapefiles or GeoJSONs or whatever format you use. And then every time you need it, you just pull it in. So I think that could save a whole lot of time just by itself.
And even kind of on the other end of that, I know there's several food banks that have shared counties.
Yeah.
So like one food bank covers part of the county, another covers the other. So just like you said, if there's a main road that kind of serves as the dividing line, you could just manually create those and have them used forever. So,
right.
Very cool stuff. Anything else? If not, we will move on with our swag giveaway. Hopefully this works.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dennis. This was awesome again. Really appreciate you. All right, here we go. Hopefully we all can see that. I'm on a new computer, so just give me a second here. I think, yeah, we're ready. Let's do 2 giveaways. And this should be everybody that was here today. So here we go. Oh, almost tab. Please reach out to me. I do not actually have your emails, even though you use your email to register for the event. That is considered private information. So reach out to me in the Slack, and I can get you your swag. Let's do one more. All right, the second one. Congrats. Again, reach out to me in the Slack channel so we can get you your swag. And that will do it for us. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Caleb.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. Loved it.